Previously, the State Department had paid for travel expenses for spouses, for children, and even for family pets of Foreign Service officers after taking new overseas assignments. But no such policy existed for domestic partners. Now, I'm a cat lover, but what does it say about us when the family cat receives more benefits than domestic partners of Foreign Service officers?
Until 1949, America did not have a woman ambassador. Until 1973, if you were a woman in the Foreign Service and you got married, you also got fired. Until 1999, we did not have an ambassador who was openly gay, and I was delighted to be able to swear in Ambassador Jim Hormel. We want our country to be represented by the best, and that can't happen if a whole category of our citizens is subject to discrimination. A case in point is actually Ambassador Mike Guest. I visited him when he was ambassador in Romania, and I saw what an incredible difference he made in the way that he represented our country, the people that had confidence in him, and how brilliantly he did his job. This debate is about a principle that is at the heart of the American idea, as John has described, and that is equality of opportunity and the fact that people have a right to be judged according to the content of their character and not by criteria that relate to issues of personal identity.
There is more than just a moral issue of leadership that the federal government ought to be taking in this. There's also a very practical reason why the federal government ought to do this, as I think Tammy's mentioning, and that is, whether rightly or wrongly, health insurance comes with employment.
Right.
That's an historical fact in our country. It's likely to be employer-based for a long time to come. Who knows? Maybe that will change. But the truth of the matter is, health care is probably second only to salary in recruiting and retaining the best and the brightest. And no one should be disadvantaged because of some identity reason, or their religion, or their sexual orientation, or their race, or their gender. They ought to be eligible to be recruited and retained because they have something to offer. There's another dimension, too, and it's just purely a financial one. I think people ought to have benefits.
Right.
You know, whatever the paradigm shift in how Americans put their families together, people ought to have benefits. And one of the benefits we're struggling with as a country right now, I know we are on the Finance Committee, how to get more people insured.
I would certainly invite those companies that have served as proud role models in acting in passing non-discrimination policies, in offering domestic partnership benefits, to toot their own horns and do so on Capitol Hill and in meetings in members' districts, because I think that there isn't not yet an adequate awareness of how far ahead of government, federal government at least, the private sector really is on this issue. We lost an engineer to another university who brought with him to the new university his grant funding that was in excess of what it would have cost to implement domestic partnership benefits statewide.
Ultimately, the Congress is the mirror image of the American people. I don't mean to insult the American people, but the truth of the matter is, it has always been so, and it has always been changing. It is not static, and ultimately, the people that are elected represent the views of the majority of the people at home. And as those change, so will the law.
The Foreign Service is really the only life I had known ever as an adult. 26 years was more than half of my lifetime. Most, if not all, of my friends were in the Foreign Service. It was my environment. It was my family in many respects. And I was immensely proud of my accomplishments, and I was very, very deeply honored to be serving America. But there was a problem, and the problem was that 12 years ago I acquired a partner. And he's not the problem, by the way. Don't tell him I suggested that. That's not my intent. The problem was that my partner had put all of his career goals on hold. And in fact, had even changed his career in order to join me in supporting the country that we both loved. And service to our country was something that we both felt strongly about. So he had done that for me, and I had to consider his welfare. And the inequities were just too strong. I began to understand that the career that I had come to love at first sight really conflicted with the partner I also had loved at first sight. The human level is that we have the same needs and the same aspirations and the same hopes as anyone. And I don't know how many of you are gay and how many of you are straight. But if you think about it from that perspective, we just want the same benefits that all families want and all families deserve.